Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Arsaholics. So it's not your usual host, Raj, today. Unfortunately for us, he can't make it to our chat tonight. He's currently on a flight to a mysterious, far, far away location. So he's going on a well-deserved break. So instead, you've got myself as your host, and I'm also joined by my fellow Arsaholic, Arunan. Arunan, how are you, mate?
Good evening. Good to be back.
Yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, my first one since November, I think. I've had a bit of a winter break.
Winter break, like we all did.
Yeah,
bit of an extended one.
Yeah, I'm still in pre-season.
Good to have you back. Good to have you back. So, first things first. Like, if you're watching on YouTube, we'd really appreciate a thumbs up on the video. It goes a really long way to just help grow the channel. And if you haven't subscribed and you enjoy the content, please do subscribe. And if you're listening on a podcast platform, then rate us, like us, whatever you fancy, really. But yeah, thank you in advance, and we really appreciate it. Okay, cool. So look, it's been 48 hours, right? 48 hours since probably one of the best games that I think I've ever seen at the Emirates. Definitely one of the best atmospheres. I think you'd agree, Arunan. And 48 hours since Arsenal beat Man United 3-2 with a 90th minute winner from Eddie Nketiah. We're now 5 points clear at the top of the Premier League. 50 points from 19 games played, which is somewhat ridiculous. And I think, like Aaron, we're obviously going to get into the game. We're going to talk about the players. We're going to talk about the goals, the match incidents, all the rest of it. But I thought it would be a good place to start. Before we get into all of that, I think it's a good place to start just by talking about the occasion, really. So, you and I were obviously very lucky in our, we were lucky enough to go to the game. We were lucky enough to be there. And I think for me, and probably for you as well, I'm sure you'd agree, going into this game, it felt big. It felt massive. It felt like a bit of a throwback to Arsenal versus United games of old in some ways. The fact that we're at the top of the table, United were, I think, third or fourth coming into the game. It felt like a real kind of clash of the Titans. And, I don't know about yourself, but when the game ended, I mean, we can talk about kind of atmosphere going into the game, but I just wanted to talk about the end of the game in some ways, or the whole experience of the match. But when the game ended, for me, like, I was an absolute wreck, like absolutely all over the place. Like, I don't know if I can really do that another 19 times this season, because it can't be good for like any of our parts at all. But I don't know, this might sound a little bit ridiculous, but I was I don't know why. I can't really explain it, but I was really emotional at the final whistle. I was almost in tears. I wouldn't say I was almost in tears, but I was very emotional. It's really hard to explain why, but it wasn't like we'd obviously just won the league. It wasn't like it was a cup final, but it felt like it was one of those matches that it just put you through like so many different emotions. It put you through the ringer in some ways, and it obviously had so much to the game. And I think when the ref finally did blow the final whistle, there was just this sense within the ground, within the stadium, that it was a bit of a momentous. It was momentous in terms of the moment. It felt quite special. It felt like a really, really, really big moment in our season, and also kind of as part of the journey that we've been on with Arteta for the last few years. With this team and this project that we've been on with him. I don't know, Aaron. Like that, I just wanted to touch on that really, and start off with that, because, like I say, it was a bit of an experience on Sunday, wasn't it? I don't know how you felt.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think you nailed it. Basically, I think everything, right? So you look at before the game where we tried to go for a drink, and like it just seemed like every pub was packed, and it wasn't just us. I heard from a few people on social media, even like going to the ground. Every single pub before the game was like packed 2 hours before. And then we decided to go for a drink in the ground pretty early on, like an hour and a half before maybe. And even then it was busy, and you could sense that there was something, I don't want to say something special, but it felt like an occasion. It felt like the Arsenal Man United games of old, where you felt that these were, arguably the two informed teams in the country, just about to go at it.
Yeah.
And then, we'll break down the game and all that, I'm sure, in a bit. But then, full time happened. And it was, the way it happened with the, the winner and the VAR. So, we almost celebrated twice, and then full time was the third big celebration. And, we were leaving the ground, and, we were all hugging each other and hugging the guys that sit around us. But you just saw like fans from all over the ground, just, I don't know, like just really happy, really emotional. And, you try and understand why. Like, why are these people emotional? It was more than just okay, yeah, we beat a big team at home the last minute, but it was so much more than the result and the 90 minutes itself. It was, I think, just this realization that, I don't even think it was about the title. I think regardless of what happens with the Premier League this season, whether we win it or not, I think there's this realization that this team are special, and they're going to be special for a while. And the way we played that game, the way we finished that game, the way we tried to win it, the players that turned up, the squad, the manager, everything about it, I think we realized that, look, this team, regardless of the Premier League next season, we're going to give this a good go as well. And the season after that, hopefully, we'll still give it a go. And that, I don't want to make do the whole Rio Ferdinand, say that, Arsenal are back, right? But it felt like it. Like this was like a confirmation that we played one of the informed teams in the Premier League. Whether or not they're the real deal, I'm still not sure about Man United, but they are very much one of the informed teams. I know they didn't have Casemiro, and you could argue with him it would have been a bit of a different game, but we bossed them, and the result says that it was 3-2 and it was tight, but we played that like we are going to win this game. And I think the fact that we got the win was almost like a conviction to the fan base that, this team is the real deal. This team is serious. And on top of that, stay top of the Premier League. We can, extend our lead back to 5 points now. And it was just, okay, let's go on to the next one now. And we'll just see where it goes. It's just fun. It's fun. It's awesome. There's so many good things to say about this team. I think we're all just really, really enjoying it.
Absolutely. Like, I couldn't agree more with everything you just said. And I think that was the overriding feeling, right? Like post-match, after the game, like you say, it's not a case of, we're saying Arsenal are back and we're going to win everything in sight, but at the same time, we're a serious team again, right? And we have a way of playing. We have a proper manager. Well, I don't want to say proper manager, but we have a manager that knows what he's doing, even though he's very inexperienced. And I think when you reflect on how this season's gone so far, you can, we're talking about it kind of every time we meet and we chat or we do one of these podcasts. We're talking about all of the things that we're noticing that the team are doing, or Arteta's doing, and the things that have changed from, when he first joined, or from the Emery era, or from the Wenger era. And, now we're sort of seeing the fruits of that plan, quite obviously being top of the league. And I think like I said, it's hard to explain what the feeling was in the ground. But when you looked around other people, you looked at other people that you're sitting next to, or you could see other people in the stands. It was, there was genuine, like I said, there was just genuine emotion. It was a combination of, I think of relief, of just happiness, beating United. I know we've had a good record against United at home in the last few years, but even so, this was a different United and it was a different Arsenal. And I think it meant even more because there was a lot riding on the game. And I think a lot of people were expecting maybe Arsenal to fall down on Sunday. I think people have expected Arsenal to fall down post World Cup, given the fixtures that we had. And that obviously hasn't happened. We've got 13 from 15 points, I think it is. And, only dropping points to Newcastle, and they're no slouches, they don't concede goals. So
people were looking at that. So what was it? Brighton, Newcastle, Brighton, Spurs, Man United or something. Not sure
West
that
Ham,
Brighton
West
and West
Ham.
Ham. Yeah.
Just after. Yeah.
And before. You're right. People were saying, let's see how Arsenal are doing after this run. Oh, we're doing all right.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. Yeah.
So, look, happy days. Let's have a chat about the game itself. A lot happened in that game. It was a bit of a classic, wasn't it? And it was quite interesting. I don't know about you. watching, I'm assuming you've watched a lot of the post-match stuff and tried to absorb as much as possible, like I have.
I think I think I've watched it. I've watched the game with like 4 different commentators. I even watched it in Spanish the other day, just because I was seeing all the different versions, and I was like, I'm just going to watch this game in Spanish as well, because to see what happens. So yeah, I have definitely watched it a few times.
So I mean, look, we had a great start to the game. We came out of the blocks fast, like we've been doing. I feel like the majority of games this season, right? We've been coming at teams where we just seem to get the tempo of the game like really, really high right from kickoff. And I think there was a couple of kind of half chances in the first few minutes, but look, we went 1-0 down. Not too soon. I think it was sort of the 15th or 17th minute, something like that. We went 1-0 down. Like, I mean, it's an unbelievable goal from Rashford. Like, I didn't realize how good it was at the time, and it was only, again, once I came home and watched it all back over the last couple of days, kind of poor from Arsenal, especially Partey. Like, it felt like it was like that reminded me of Thomas Partey from a couple of seasons ago, or when he first joined, when he was fantastic, but he wasn't consistent all through the game, and he tended to give the ball away a few times in a game with kind of like sloppy passes. And I'm not sure it was necessarily a sloppy pass, but the ball comes to him and he tries to make a first time pass with a lot of power behind it, and it just gets intercepted straight away. But then, like, to be fair, what Rashford does after that, he just, I mean, like, he completely destroys Partey with the nutmeg. Which I didn't see it at the time, like I say. And the shot he hits, like, my first reaction, I think I probably said it to you guys, was I think Ramsdale should do better. Like, that was my first reaction, because it felt like one of those shots that he could get down a bit faster. But again, when you see the replay, he hits it with such pace, such accuracy,
and that technique. It's very hard for a keeper to save, right? I thought the same. I thought Ramsdale looked like, from where we sit behind that goal, it looked like Ramsdale was a bit slow to get down to it. But you look at the way he hit it, and that technique, it was a really, really good goal. I think you can analyze it. Yeah, we gave it away in midfield, and there's still a lot of, he still had a lot to do from that point, but he did everything right. And sometimes you just got to say, like, look, it was a really good goal. There's not much you can do about it.
Yeah, agreed. And the interesting thing that, this has been a theme for Arsenal, this has been a theme at home games for sure. I mean, we haven't gone 1-0 down that often. I think it's been like, I think I saw a stat, it's been like 4 times this season, obviously twice to United, I think. But anyway, every time we have either conceded a goal or we've conceded the lead, the reaction from the fans, like, I don't know if you could hear it on TV. I think you kind of could hear it on TV, but obviously we can hear it really clearly being in the ground. Like, the way that this set of Arsenal fans, if you will, the current Arsenal fans, the way that they really, really back the team. And you can see Ødegaard on the pitch as well. He's trying to kind of get the crowd going as well. But to be fair, like, as soon as they scored, you're like shit, like, oh God, like, that's not a good start, whatever. Plenty of time left in the game, but your initial reaction is, it's United. They are a good team, as you just said. And you're kind of not sure what's going to happen for the rest of the game, and you don't want to concede the first goal in a game like this normally. But within, I don't know, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, you've pretty much start hearing the roar from the crowd, getting behind the team. And this is still while the United fans in the corner are still going crazy. Like, the game, like, it's not like the game's kicked off and then the crowd have started to back the team. It's literally within seconds, and that's happened a few times this season. And it must help, like, give the team belief. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, I think it's what it goes back to, like, why we're feeling so, like, why we're so happy with this team, and why the match experience is so good this year, is it genuinely feels like there is a two-way process between the team and the fans in the ground this season, in that we respond and we make, we give it the team play well, and then we do well, and we make a lot of noise on the ground. But also, when the team needs a boost, or it needs, picking up, there's this resilience, this defiance to say, like, come on boys, you can do this. And it genuinely feels like players in the team respond to that. And we've seen this a lot, right? Like Sunday was a good example where we went and, picked up and we carried on where we left off, and we got a goal back within like 10 minutes or something like that. But I remember, I think it was a Leicester game where we came back twice from behind really, really quickly because this team are just responding. And I don't know how often you say we haven't gone 1-0 down, or we haven't gone behind in games that often, but even when we've gone behind, at least at home this season, we haven't been behind for very long. Like, I think the time that we almost always get an equalizer back very, very quickly. And I think a lot of that, you have to just give credit to the fans in the ground to just keeping the atmosphere positive. And it just seems like this young team respond to that. And actually, because the team are not behind for that long, because we've gotten back in games quite quickly, it doesn't allow like nerves to set in, and it allows like the game, it doesn't, we're not often like playing catch up and having to chase a game. Because I think if Man United had gone in 1-0 at half time, I think that second half is very different. I think Man United sit back. I think they get deep. They let you sit deep, and they said, like, we're just going to see this out because we know we can see this out. And I think that, we lose motivation. But because the fact that we got that goal so quickly, again, it almost set the tone to say, we know we can beat this defense. We know that we can get past this team, and we're going to just do it again if we have to do it again. And we're going to continue to just try and gain that advantage through possession to keep going and playing the football that we need to play.
Yeah. It's just complete belief in the system, isn't there? There's complete belief in the way that Arteta wants us to play, and it's paid off. It's paid off pretty well all season. I mean, look, Raj has kind of backed up what we were saying. Even Raj is commenting from the air on his plane Wi-Fi. Saka even said it after the game. The fans don't realize how much it lifts them when we rev them up after they concede. And that just kind of backs up the point, really. And like I said, you can really experience it in the crowd or in the ground when you're there. So look, I mean, like you say, we weren't behind for very long at all. I think it didn't take us less than 10 minutes, I think, to come back. The Nketiah equalizer, I absolutely love this goal. Like, I watched it back, and I didn't realize kind of the build up that was involved in it. Zinchenko gets involved, Erdegaard's involved, and ultimately it's a really, really good cross from Granit Xhaka in that area that he's been finding himself in kind of all season. That left attacking kind of path, I don't know what you call it, area of the pitch. Yeah. And Eddie, it's bad defending from a United perspective. Wan-Bissaka just does not track Nketiah. He looks at him, he knows he's there, but he just lets him go. But this is what I love about Eddie Nketiah. Like, he's always in the box, and now that he's getting a run of games, you can really see, I think we knew what his strengths were, but to do it in some of the games that he's now doing it in, United at home as a prime example, we had a good game against Tottenham as well last week. He has that ability, as good strikers do, to just sniff out chances. Like, he's always in the right place at the right time. It feels like he's always in the right place at the right time. And I know we're gonna talk about Eddie afterwards because obviously he scored the winner. But what were your thoughts on the equaliser, Aaron?
Yeah, it was like when he did that and when he put that header away, I know it was bad defending. I know you could argue it was a free header, and he probably should have put it away, but he put it away with authority, and he put it away like he is a striker that, I mean, he is in form. He's a striker that's in form. He's a striker that's confident. He's a striker that seems to be, just to say, like, this is mine. I'm just going to deal with this. I'm going to get us back in the game, and I'm going to, just put this away. And it was confident. It was done with ease, and it made it look so easy. But he still had he got up quite high for that header, I think, and he put that header in a place where De Gea couldn't save it. And it was really good play by Zinchenko, and Xhaka put in a really good cross, and all of that work in that left half space was really good. But again, I'm just so pleased because it meant that for Eddie, who's had a bit of a up and down start to the season in terms of getting minutes, I don't think Jesus scores that goal. I don't think Jesus is ever even in that position, to be fair. Like, both the goals, actually, because they're two very different players. And I think realistically, Jesus would probably have been outside on the left, probably helping with the build-up play. And actually, at that moment, we've changed the team a bit to accommodate this, but we have someone in the box now to put away those chances. And sometimes you just need to hope that a defender makes a mistake, a defender switches off, and you have the striker in the right place, the right time to take advantage of any mistake like that.
Yeah, completely. Like, he's absolutely on fire at the moment, isn't he? Doing the business for us. So apologies to anyone listening on podcast or audio only. We are getting a lot of comments actually, and a lot of interaction, which is really good from a few people. And so Shani just mentioning, Saka's celebration with a couple of emojis there, but basically, mimicking the Rashford celebration, which again, I didn't see at the time, had no idea.
No, I
only saw it afterwards. And that was quite funny, actually. Yeah. I mean, they're obviously mates from England. So yeah, could be quite an interesting one, the next England camp when they talk about that. But and Rajesh has commented saying such a good celebration. Completely agree. It was good to see. Yeah. Okay, cool. I mean, so we're going at halftime 1-1. The other thing a lot happened again, as I said, in the game. The other thing that happened obviously at halftime was a change, a substitution, which Arteta, I can't remember the last time he did this, but obviously, look, Ben White at right back came off for Tomiyasu. He was on a yellow card. It was a pretty bad tackle on Rashford. And this was really interesting, actually, because I know, the fact that he was booked must have had must have played a part, in Arteta's decision. Probably looking at the second half, coming up against an informed Rashford, a player that is that kind of play where he will make you commit tackles and possibly give away another foul and get a second yellow. But Aaron, do you reckon if White wasn't booked, if he hadn't have been booked in the first half, do you still think he would have got taken off at halftime? Do you think it was purely just down to the yellow, or do you think it was more tactical?
I don't think he was playing well. I said this, that I might have said to you, or might have said to Raj at halftime. Said I thought Ben White's been really poor. I thought Partey had been pretty poor in that half. But I said, look, I wouldn't be surprised if, after 60 minutes, Ben White comes off because he's struggling. I was very surprised that he took him off at halftime.
Me too.
But I think it's actually, it worked out really well, and I think you just have to. This is one of those times where our squad depth has really, really paid off, because we were able to take off probably, in my opinion, the best right back in the Premier League this season, one of the best right backs in the Premier League this season, and bring on our best right back from last season. And I thought Tommy did. He had a few iffy moments, but in general, I thought he handled it really well, and he was involved with some of the build-up play for the attack. And I just thought Ben White struggled a bit. I don't know why he struggled. I'm surprised, because he's usually, I remember against Palace away, he handled Zaha really, really well. But he just, hopefully it's just one of those games where it didn't work, and he was on the yellow, and that just held him back a bit more. And I just think Arteta thought, look, I've got a really good right back on the bench that isn't on a yellow. Why do I need to take this risk? Because going down to 10 would have been a very, very different game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one of those games. In hindsight, it worked out, and it was a pretty smart decision. He could have left him on, considering how consistent Ben White's been. But look, fair play to Arteta. It's a pretty big change to make, even if he was on a yellow. But yeah, so we come out with the second half. Tomiyasu at right back, and obviously, look, we take the lead pretty soon into the second half. Sorry, this goal, I absolutely love this goal. We have been raving about Saka, as in the four of us have been raving about Saka pretty much since we started doing this podcast. I think that's probably around the kind of time he came onto the scene, or just after he came onto the scene and really started establishing himself in the first team. But everyone's seen the goal. I don't need to talk about what he does, but what a goal. What an unbelievable hit from, however far out. It was pretty far out, and he had Luke Shaw on toast the whole game. He had Eriksen on toast the whole game. And you can clearly see now, whenever Saka picks up the ball, whoever he's playing against, whether it's, Luke Shaw was coming into this game. I know he's been playing left centre back a fair bit for United, but he's coming to this game in pretty good form. A lot of people are talking about Luke Shaw as, basically one of the best left backs in the country at the moment. And I don't think Saka gives I don't think he gives a shit, to be honest. Like he just basically, I mean, he faces any left back, and you don't know if he's going to come inside, if he's going to go down the outside. You don't know if he's going to be, he's going to basically make a pass on the overlap. He's going to play into Odegaard and 1-2. You don't know if he's going to shoot from distance. Like he's got so many kind of facets to his game. And like for me, the question with Saka is, we keep saying, well, a lot of people are saying, like Saka's a great player. He's a great, he's a fantastic player. But do you think it's now time, not just based on the goal he scored a couple of days ago, but what he's been doing so far this season, what he did for England at the World Cup and at the Euros, to be fair, do you think we should now be talking about him in that world-class kind of bracket?
I think he's getting there. I know there was an article, I think it was Jonathan Liu in the Guardian, who wrote a really good article saying, basically how Saka basically eventually broke Luke Shaw by just going at him again and again. And he made the comparison between him and Salah in the sense that Saka is now at that stage where defenders have to plan for him, and defenders don't really know what to do because they can't get tight, and therefore and that's what Luke Shaw, because he didn't want to get too tight. I mean, Ericsson, sorry, they didn't get too tight, but then they stood off him, and then he just goes and says like, well, screw you guys. I'm just going to go whack this in the corner.
Yeah. I was going to say Newcastle did a good job, right? Like they doubled up on him with Joe Linton. I think Willock, maybe, I can't remember who it was, but they did a good job. And obviously we didn't score in that game, but yeah, I think that was a bit of more of a one-off than anything else.
Yeah. And I think, he's at that level now where he obviously hasn't achieved as much just yet, but I mean, the kid's only 21? I'm not sure how old he is. 22.
I think he's still 21. Yeah, I think so.
And he's at that stage now where defenders and opposition managers have to plan for how to deal with him. And even when you plan on how you deal with him, they don't stop him. And that is a sign of like a world-class player. And what I loved about this goal was it was that kind of goal where it was like a big player goal, which is like the big players. This isn't him scoring a worldie when we're 4-0 up and being like, I'm just going to have a go to try and just like, because we're 4-0 up and I can do it. This is a really tight game at 1-1 at this point, like a big game in the context of our season. And he is like, this is what I'm going to do to try and win us this game. And it's that whole like, we're taking the game by the scruff of the neck type thing, which is like what big players do when they want to try and win you a game. We've scored loads of goals this season where the team like gels together and we craft a move and then we put it on a plate for someone, and Saka, Odegaard, Martinelli will come up with a good finish or a good pass. But this is just Saka and Saka alone. And he's just been like, I'm just going to win this and I'm going to just smash it in, and no one could stop him. And he almost did it again.
Yeah, I was just
did he hit the post, or he might have just hit the outside of the post?
Outside of the post, I think it was. Yeah. I think it got a deflection because we got a corner off it. But yeah,
and we just love it, right? Because this is a player that we've seen come through our academy, and just grow. And we've thought like, okay, this kid is good, but I don't think we still know how good he's going to be. Like, this is the question, right? Like, is he actually? Like, are we talking like Ballon d'Or levels now, or like he's got a little bit of a way to go? But we're starting to think like, could he be at that level? And even if he's not at that level and he's just below that level, that's still more than enough.
Agreed. I mean, people are talking about him as potentially Player of the Year or Young Player of the Year as well already. So let's see what happens for the rest of the season. But I
think you're right. I think you said this. You've probably said this for a while, but I don't think you've said this, Myz. I don't think the rest of the league really appreciates it.
No, I was thinking, agreed. No, you're right. They don't. I don't think people do. Even when I speak to like mates who support other clubs, I think they appreciate he's good. But this is what I'm saying. I don't think they appreciate just how good. But maybe he's got to do it for, I don't know, another couple of seasons or so. I'm not really sure. Or maybe it's a case of, you've got to win something, or
I think it's that, and it's like this big game thing, right? If he does more of that, like what he did again in these big Premier League games, doing things like winning the game on his own. I know he didn't score the winner, but trying to win the game by himself. That is the type of thing that they're the types of goals that go around the world, that everyone in every single country sees. The types of goals that Messi and Ronaldo used to score week in, week out. But that's the type of goal that brings you into the conversation of like world class.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, cool. So look, I mean, United came back into the game pretty quickly. I don't think we had the lead for very long. I think it was something like 5 or 6 minutes.
Apparently, it was the almost exact same time that we were behind.
Oh, really?
After the first goal, they scored after the second.
Right, right. Look, I don't want to talk about this goal too much unless there's anything specific you want to say on it, Arunan, because I mean, for me, it's a bit of a weird goal. Like, we don't normally concede goals like that. I think Ramsdale, he doesn't cover himself in glory. Like, I feel like he's come into an area where it's quite difficult for him to essentially reach the ball. Like, there's a lot of players in that area, and he just doesn't get enough purchase on it. And yeah, it's one of those where it's just unfortunately got, Martinez has got a decent header on it and we couldn't keep it out. But I'm happy to kind of talk about what happens after that, the last 10, 15 minutes or so, because that was some kind of, I mean, not just the winner, but the end to the game generally. I mean, how tense and how nervy and how, like I said at the start, just emotional that last 10 or so minutes was. It was something, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the way we went at it was something as well, because I think that's what made it quite emotional was, this young team were like playing again one of the form teams in the Premier League at home, admittedly, and they were like, a draw is not good enough. We must win this game. And we are going to do everything we can to win this game. And one of my early criticisms of Arteta and the teams, that the way we used to play, was that we couldn't do that when he first started. We just didn't know how to play possession football with intensity and create chances. And there'd be so many games in the early, seasons of Arteta where we would be behind or we'd be trying to win a game, but we just didn't know what to do. We couldn't get the ball forward. We couldn't keep the ball. We couldn't create chances. None of that was happening. But now, like you said, the system, where everyone's so confident in the system, they know that we need to, like, how to play, how to create pressure, how to create chances, and how to get winners. And it was relentless pressure. And I spoke to a few United fans, like sensible ones, and they all said to me actually that for the last a rare breed, but I did find some, and they all said to me, like, the last 20-25 minutes, like, it was ridiculous because they couldn't get out of their half.
Yeah.
And they said there was a bit of naivety from Man United in the sense that they, the way they just couldn't keep possession. And they said United should have done better to keep possession in the last 15-20 minutes. But I think a lot of that was just us, our pressing, and just how relentless. And we just kept pushing them back deeper and deeper and deeper to a point where they were, if that was us and we were defending, I would have been crying from like the fear.
Yeah.
Because it must have been scary to watch.
It was very Man City, wasn't it? Man City of like a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Or even like, I think the old Arsene Wenger teams, like, they used to do this quite a bit when we were chasing, but that was against smaller teams where we were like 1-1 against a bottom half team and we knew we had to win that game. But we treated Man United like that, in the sense that this is a team that we should be beating and we are going to just go out and win. Like, no one was like, okay, a draw is good enough. A draw probably would have been good enough. Like, if we had drawn that game, forget about the context, but if someone had offered you a point at home to Man United, you would have been annoyed, but you wouldn't have been like, that's a disaster.
Yeah.
Right? But the way we played, we played like, if we had drawn this game, it would have been a disaster. And the team were not accepting that.
I think, go on. Sorry, mate. Sorry.
No, that was it. Like,
I was just going to add to that as well. No, you summarized it nicely. And yeah, like, I think the other thing was, like, I don't know if we forced this because of everything you've just said and the way that we approached that last period of the game, but obviously United seemed to be very, very happy to take a point. And that's somewhat surprising. I mean, it's not, because like you say, we were so dominant, but at the same time, you consider, I guess, their ambitions for the season, and everyone was giving them kind of potential title talk before the game, or definitely before the Palace game after they beat City. But, they were time wasting. De Gea was wasting time. They brought on Fred for Anthony when they had a couple of options. Potentially they could have gone Garnacho, potentially Elanga if they really wanted to try and win the game. So it's pretty obvious what United were happy with. They were happy with a point. So I think that kind of helped in some ways, but I think also, like you say, I think Arsenal kind of forced United into a bit of a corner, really. And we didn't really, like you say, relentless is the best word to describe it. Let's talk about the goal then, because Eddie had a chance at 2-2. I can't remember exactly when it was, but he had a bit of a snapshot that came to him in the box, again in the right place. I mean, it was down our end, and I remember turning to you and Raj and saying, like one of those where you feel like he should score, but then at the same time, what else could he really do? Like he's reacted first. He's got away a really powerful shot low down. It's not in the corner, but it's a pretty good save from De Gea. But then, he obviously takes his chance when it comes, the winner. This this goal, I mean, I'll talk through it from what I remember, but obviously Trossard was on at this point, and he seemed to be pretty key in the goal because he picks the ball up, I think 30 or 40 yards from goal, and he sort of drives towards the box. We're pushing for the winner. It comes to Zinchenko wide on the left. He pulls it back. Ødegaard sort of tries to take a shot or takes a shot, and it's some sort of deflection, and it kind of loops up. And again, it's really interesting because we see all of this live right in front of us. We're row 7, and when I first saw it, I mean, the offside is one thing. I was just going to talk about, I kept saying to you guys, because it went to VAR, and Eddie obviously he touched it. He flicks it, and I kept saying to you guys, if Eddie had left it, it's going in anyway. It's going in anyway. But then when you watch the replays, sorry, excuse me. When you watch the replays, potentially it was going in, but it does feel like there was nowhere near enough power on that initial shot for it to have made it to the goal. It's one of those where it feels like it's going to loop up and probably.
I thought it was spinning slightly away. But...
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
I was just going to say. So obviously, well, yeah. Go on. What were your? Because, I mean,
yeah. So I think Trossard definitely helps, and I think that's it's impossible to tell what would Martinelli have done in that situation. But I think when you're chasing a game, and we've seen this, I think against Newcastle, we saw this, where actually just having another really, really good player can come on and keep that intensity going. And he does. I think he tried it once or twice where he just brought the ball out from deep and he just started running with it and straight back at those defenders. And he didn't really give the Man United defenders any chance to just relax, because they finally really happy that Martinelli has gone off, who'd probably been running at them for 85 minutes. And then Trossard comes on and just starts doing the exact same thing again. And then he's really involved, and then there's a bit of nice play, and then Ødegaard puts it across, and then actually even then when the ball comes out to Eddie, he still has quite a bit of work to direct it on goal and put it in the right place. He's still got to beat De Gea, who's really good at shot stopping. He did well to save the initial shot in the chance a little while before that we talked about. And then obviously the ground went mental. I couldn't believe it. For the first 5 seconds, I was just this can't be real. Then I was convinced it was offside, but we still celebrated like crazy. And then obviously when it went to VAR, I was convinced they'd rule it out. Everyone
was, weren't they? Because I mean, I was celebrating pretty hard, to be honest, because it didn't I guess 90th minute, naturally you just celebrate. But then I looked around. The guys, like you say, the guys that sit next to us, I kind of was no, it's going to be offside. It's going to be, everyone's, like you say, convinced themselves it's going to be offside. And then you're bollocks, it probably is. And then the VAR check didn't take that long, but I mean, there were two potential offsides. When
I was in my head, I was getting annoyed that the VAR was taking so long, because I was well, if you rule this out, we're going to run out of time to get a winner. So I was just hurry up and rule this out so we can get on with the game and go back and try and score again. And then obviously they gave it. And then, my God, what the reaction in that ground was incredible. And you could hear it on TV as well, because you could hear that roar from the crowd.
Yeah.
But that was when a lot of fans were oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. We've gone and won it. And no, fair play to Eddie, because again, probably another goal that Jesus doesn't score, if I'm being honest. Or maybe he does, I don't know, I'm being harsh. But Again, a really good finish. Like it's just that's the type of finish that Eddie is good at, right? You like in the 6-yard box, 50 centimeters away from goal. That is Eddie's niche, where he is better than anyone else in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, like you say, man, stadium absolutely erupted, and it was just wild scenes, wasn't it? It was just mental, like pandemonium, bedlam, whatever word you want to use to describe it. It was fantastic. Like I said right at the start, probably one of the best games and best just experiences at the Emirates that I've had for sure. And I'm probably talking on behalf of a lot of Arsenal fans. Yeah, so look, we won the game. Before we kind of get into the ramifications of winning the game and what that means for us this season, potentially, there were a couple of players that I wanted to focus on. I mean, we've talked to one of those is Eddie Nketiah. Now we've talked a lot about Eddie because he obviously scored a couple of goals, but we had a question in our last episode, which Raj and I didn't get around to answering, unfortunately, from and I apologize if I'm pronouncing the name wrong. It's Tommy, I think it's Tommy Hoara. I'm not sure if that's correct. Apologies if that's wrong. But the question he asked was, I haven't got it in front of me, but I think it was along the lines of, obviously, this was pre-United, so pre-Eddie's 2 goals that he's just scored. Do we think Eddie's going to outscore Jesus this season? Any thoughts on that, Aaron?
I think a lot of it will depend on minutes played. I think if you give them the same amount of minutes this season, then yeah. My worry, I'm not sure I'm worried about this, but if he comes back, we play slightly differently. And what Jesus does is gets more out of Martinelli, I think, on that. Because what usually happens, Jesus goes out wide to the left, usually is involved in all that left-hand side build-up. And that usually means Martinelli gets into more dangerous goal-scoring positions, or even Xhaka gets into more goal-scoring positions, and maybe Zinchenko might be more involved in that kind of stuff. But with Eddie, because he does a lot of the build-up, but he's not Jesus in terms of like build-up play. Yeah. I get the sense that we like players like Martinelli maybe sacrifice themselves a little bit in terms of goal scoring, and I think that left-hand side is Martinelli has to do a lot more of the build-up work. Zinchenko has to do a lot more of the build-up work. And Xhaka has to play maybe a little bit deeper just to compensate, because nobody else can do what Jesus does. But the counter side to that is that Eddie can do more Eddie things, which is score goals and be in the right place at the right time, because he's not having to do a lot of that build-up play. But the thing that's impressed me is actually Eddie's ability to do a lot of that build-up play, which I didn't think he could do. And I didn't think that was in his game, but he has done that probably a lot better than most people thought. But the good side of it is that he's a goal scorer, right? And Jesus is good at a lot of things, but he'd probably say that he's not I don't say elite finisher, but he's not
a typical striker.
His game is about more than goals.
Yeah, agreed.
But Eddie's game is largely just like, put me on the pitch, give me a run of games, and I will score goals. And like you look at all of Eddie's numbers this season, like his XG, his like conversion statistics, his finishing, his number of shots, touches in the box, all of those are like actually better than Jesus's at the moment.
Yeah.
And fair play to him, because I didn't think he had it in him. I've doubted him. I was convinced that he wasn't able to do it as consistently. But he's proving a lot of people wrong.
Yeah, completely. And so kind of follow-on question then. I mean, it might be a bit early to be thinking about this, but there's talk that Jesus might be back in about 5 weeks. I think he was talking to a UFC fighter or a boxer at the game. I can't remember who it was. And he, cameras picked it up.
And reliable source.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, look, there. I think even The Athletic was saying it might be about 5 weeks. But yeah, I mean, on the assumption that Jesus does play a fairly significant part in our run-in or the rest of the season, if he's back, let's say March, there's probably still a lot of games to play. There obviously is a lot of games still to play. Based on kind of current form and what Eddie is doing for the team, and the fact that he's obviously scoring goals, which, like you say, is what he's in the team to do. Do you think Jesus comes straight back in, or do you think Arteta sticks with Nketiah?
I think it depends on how the next couple of games go. I think what I want to see from Eddie is consistency. I mean, he's like just over a little while longer, but I think look, honestly, if he's playing well and he's continuing to score goals, there's no reason to drop him. And
it's very hard to drop someone when they're scoring, like, you know.
Yeah.
If you're scoring a goal every
other
game,
like, it's working. If the team are winning, then what? Like, just play Jesus in the Europa League. Like, it's not a problem. And it means we've got two good strikers. My big worry is what happens if Eddie gets injured in the next game or next two games.
Yeah.
And you know, I know we've got Trossard now to add goals, but in terms of just how we play, like, there's no one else that I think can step in, and we might struggle there, which is, but until we get both those players back, I'm still very, very worried because we are very dependent on Eddie Nketiah until then.
Yeah. Well, we might touch on the transfer window in a bit. The other player, but just before we kind of wrap up on the game, the other player I wanted to talk about briefly, because we kind of haven't really got that long, there's a few other things to talk about, was Alexander Zinchenko. Obviously he's been getting some like serious credit, some rave reviews for his performance the other day, and I think just generally in the last few games he's been in really good form. But mate, what a signing he's been. You know, he's obviously quite clearly become one of the leaders of the team. You can see it, you know, in the kind of the pre-match huddles, that kind of thing, and you see his passion on the pitch. You see the winning mentality that he's brought to the club, and you know, you saw his reaction to the winner, for example. You know, his reaction to the winner was, you know, with the fans, just, you know, pure emotion. And on top of that, you know, technically, he's been so good. You know, he's operating. He's doing exactly what Arteta wants from his left back. Basically, he's operating in this, you know, hybrid left back, central midfield position. But when he comes into midfield, or basically whenever he's on the ball, you know, he transitions between both kind of positions seamlessly. But you know, he's so good technically, such a clever player. And I don't know if you saw this, like, not that it's anything of too much note, but Carl Walker did an interview while Zinchenko was at City, and I think he got asked to name his top three. I think it was like top three technical players. And you think about how many technically gifted players City have got, and he names, I can't remember the other. I think it was Mahrez, and Zinchenko was one of them, and then there was another player. I can't remember who it was. But you know, we're seeing that now, obviously, because we're watching him every week. But yeah, I mean, look, anything to add just in terms of Zinchenko?
I think the thing I like about Zinchenko is I don't really understand his role in the sense I understand what he's doing, but there were times in that game where he picked up the ball on the right-hand touchline.
Yeah, his heat map's pretty crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm just like, what are you like? Why is he there? Like, what is how is that, like, how is this team functioning when he can just go to the right-hand side and just do something there, and then the next minute he's defending against I guess Anthony on our left-hand side. And I've watched him, like, I've watched highlights, and I'm just like, how do you like allow a player to do this, and how does that like make sense? And that for me is it must be so hard if you're an opposition manager to plan for Zinchenko, because like, who do you say to deal with this, and who deals with like everything that he needs to do? And that's why. And like, on the ball, he's brilliant. But then you look at the mentality as well. Like, he's talked about like raising our mentality. He's always talked about us going for the title. You see him on the pitch. You see him in the dressing room. He's brilliant. I think I've seen a few City fans. I don't know any, because I don't think anyone knows any City fans in real life. But a few City fans on social media and stuff saying that he was probably their biggest loss, and they made a massive mistake letting him go. They're like, not many of them have said much about Jesus, but they've all said that like letting Zinchenko go was like crazy for what he did. Like, they don't understand why City let him go.
Yeah, I've sort of seen the same kind of conversations on Twitter, and yeah, like fortunately for us, they they did let him go because they obviously didn't see us as a threat in the summer.
Yeah, I mean the funny part was right, we were really upset like about losing out on Mudryk, right? But the only reason we signed Zinchenko is because we effectively didn't want to pay for
Martinez.
Martinez.
Yeah,
And you remember, right?
true.
Everyone's like, gutted. Why didn't we pay the extra 5 million quid or whatever? But you look at like what Zinchenko has added to this team. I don't know what the plan for Martinez was. Like, was it for him to play as a centre back? Was it for him to play as a left back or whatever? But I don't think Martinez, if you've seen him in this Man United team, like he's a very good player, he's a very good defender. He scored a bit of a fluky goal, but there's no way he adds what Zinchenko has added this season.
Sorry, I was on mute there. Completely agree, mate. Completely agree. Hopefully he stays fit because he's obviously becoming pretty key to a lot of the good things we're doing. All right, cool. So, I mean, I think look, we've obviously calmed down a lot from Sunday. Even yesterday, I was buzzing, and obviously, like 48 hours on, we're a bit calmer. But ultimately, position we're in now, and we'll just quickly talk about this because we've got a big game on Friday, and we're still in the middle of a transfer window, so it's worth touching on those things. But I was meant to have the league table up ready for me to have a look at, and I haven't, so that's poor preparation from me. But we are 5 points clear of Man City, and halfway through the season, as I said, 50 points, which is wild. Like it's a crazy number, and obviously, we've got a game in hand on City as well. That game against Everton that we're still waiting to be rescheduled, which is probably going to be against completely different Everton team once they hire a new manager and probably have a bounce back and all the rest of it. But hey ho, just like, mate, you were one of probably the only Arsenal fan on the planet that thought. I mean, I know you didn't say we were going to win the title, or you thought we'd win the title, but you were pretty positive, pre-Palace, pre the first game of the season. And, I think you said words to the effect of, if Arsenal could win the first few games of the season, let's basically see what happens. There's anything can happen in football pretty much. So obviously you had maybe a slight inkling that there was something there with this team. And obviously what they've shown in these first 19 games is probably beyond even yours, any Arsenal fans' expectations or even dreams, to be honest. Like this is one of the best. I believe it's the fifth ever best start to a Premier League season. So that's like factoring in all of the kind of City and Liverpool a couple of years ago, and United and Chelsea, and us as well. It's the fifth best ever start to a Premier League season, which is pretty impressive. But if I had to ask you the question, and I'm going to put you on the spot, but do you think Arsenal were going to win the Premier League this season?
Do I think we're going to win it? I don't know. I think City are just unreal. I want to see. Do I think we can? Obviously. I think deep down, I just think City are unreal. They've got a guy who's probably going to score like 50 goals this season or something. Yeah. And I think the key is how we do over the next 6 or 7 days in the transfer window. I think if we can add one more, okay, in an ideal world, okay, put it this way: if we add a central midfielder and we add another attacking player, then I think I'll be very, very confident. I don't think we're going to add a central midfielder and another attacking player. So what really worries me now is what happens if Thomas Partey gets injured, or what happens if Eddie Nketiah gets injured in the next 5, for Eddie before Jesus is back, for Thomas Partey until the end of the season. I know there's talk that the new centre-back that we've signed can possibly play in defensive midfield. I don't think he can do what Thomas Partey can do. I don't think there's that many players in world football that can do what Thomas Partey can do. So no wonder we're struggling to find someone. But honestly, like this, for me, this transfer window is the most important transfer window in the last 20 years for this club, in my opinion. Like, because we're on this journey, we're on this process. No one anywhere seriously thought that we would be in a title race come January and needing to like bring some of this stuff forward. But we may or may not. We've talked about this, and the team is better, and the team is in a much better place to compete long term. And I don't think we should break any of that. But if we are in a place now to say you spend 15 million more, you spend 10 million more, and you can win a title, I think we will really, really regret not doing that business. And this team are so good, but we need backups and we need a squad. And we've started to make some inroads with that, with Trossard, with Kiwior, and that's really good. But there are one or two more positions. And maybe I'm being greedy. Maybe that maybe we need to, we can't have two players in every position, and we're just going to have to get a bit of luck, because every team that wins the title has luck with injuries.
Exactly.
Right? And I read a stat that I said, I think we've had 6 players that have played every single game so far this season in the Premier League, and the record previously for any team that's won the league was like 4 or something in terms of consistency.
Yeah.
So we've been really, really lucky with injuries so far this season. We gambled at the start of the season with no like wide player replacements, with no other strikers, with no other midfielders, and that hasn't really cost us. I would be very, very surprised if we had, knowing our history with the injuries, I'll be very, very surprised if we didn't. So yeah, we just have to support this squad, and Arteta, Edu, Vinay, whoever else, just like do whatever you can to just help get this team over the line in terms of budget, squad, etc.
I mean, it's interesting because, like you touched on, right? So Leandro Trossard's come in, fairly big money, not huge money, but sort of 27 million pounds. I think that deal is worth. Obviously, he made his debut on Sunday. Then we've assigned. I'm going to pronounce his name wrong. I think it's Jacob Kiwior. It's probably wrong. Kiwior, I think it is.
Kiwior.
So
Jakub, right? Or Jacob?
Is it Jakub? Okay,
I don't know.
We'll have to get the right pronunciation. Apologies. So around 25 million euros. Again, we're not talking, small change. It's decent money. Polish international defender. I think he can play centre back. I think he can play left back and possibly CDM as well. I think he's played there previously. 22 years old, so relatively young, but not a kid. We've had a question from Twitch from, I think it's Rensiak is the handle. So he said, "I'm from Poland. What do you think about the Kiwior transfer?" So, I mean, look, being completely honest, I've never seen him play. I think a lot of Arsenal fans probably have never seen him play. Apparently played every game in the World Cup, or started every game for Poland in the World Cup. So, okay, I take that back. I've obviously seen him play because I watched most of the World Cup, but he's not someone that necessarily left a mark on me. But look, for me, I mean, I agree with what you said, Aaron, and like we obviously, like, it's really interesting because we're in a position that we didn't expect to be in at the start of the season. So it feels like we're, me and Raj were talking about this in the last episode. We've obviously got a plan. Arteta, Edu, they always talk about, the plan that we've got in terms of, we know who we want to sign, we know our targets, and it's just a case of kind of, we do the due diligence, we do the homework, as it were. And then it's a case of just executing and making sure, trying our best to get those targets. And, these transfers don't feel rushed. They don't feel like they're panic transfers. So it kind of feels like we've just accelerated what we were probably hoping to do in the summer, kind of 6 months earlier, because of the position that we're in. Where I somewhat disagree with what you said is, I feel like getting 2 players for that kind of money, spending 50 or so million pounds roughly on 2 players, one of them Premier League proven and established and experienced in international, in Trossard, and doing that kind of business in January, that's actually not that easy, because United needed a striker, for example, and strikers are generally kind of hard to find, unless you're willing to spend massive money like Haaland money or Mbappe money or whatever. And they had to go for Weghorst, and I think he's on loan as well. Like, they had to kind of do a bit of, essentially a bit of a deal, or go for someone that probably isn't their first choice, but he's going to do a job for them for the next kind of 6 months or so. And so I think the business that we've done so far has been pretty good. I think we're all happy with Trossard. We're going to wait and see how the new defender does. But then when you add to the mix that, you know, Smith Rowe's back, Reece Nelson should hopefully be back fairly soon. And, you know, we wrote off Nketiah. A lot of us wrote off Nketiah like a season ago. And then since he's been in the team at the back end of last season and now this season, he's been on fire, to be honest. I think his stats are ridiculous in terms of number of starts and number of goals. And so you kind of got on that basis, sorry, I feel like you kind of have to give Reece Nelson a bit of a chance. He came on, I think it was against Forest, and he got a goal or two. You know, I feel like we are building the squad out a little bit. And like you say, I know we need backups. The games are going to start coming thick and fast when the Europa League comes back. But I mean, I'm overall pretty happy with the business that we've done. Look, if we can get someone to cover for Partey, amazing. But I do wonder if Kiwior, who we've signed, is he that CDM cover?
Maybe.
And I also wonder about Zinchenko as well, because do you I mean, look, we could talk about this for ages, but I guess we know what Zinchenko offers in central midfield. He's not a Partey. I'm not saying he is, but worst comes to worst, if you want something, I don't know, if you want someone to maybe sit in alongside El Neni, or maybe even just play instead of Partey, but obviously he's going to offer different qualities. That's potentially an option as well. I'm not saying it's an ideal option. I'm not saying it's going to win us the league, but, you know, maybe that cover that we need is already there. And, you know, it's quite hard. I don't know. I feel like it can be quite hard to maybe go and get the target that we want, because apparently the target that we want in central midfield is Declan Rice. And if we can't do that in January, which I don't think anyone thinks we can, then, you know, is it more a case of we're going to have to just kind of hold until then and manage and hope, yeah, like you say, we need a bit of luck between now and the end of the season, right?
I think I think ultimately we're going to have to gamble in one or two positions. I think realistically, if Kiwior can play defensive midfield, we've got El Neni, like you said, Myz, might be able to make something with Zinchenko work. Xhaka obviously has played there in the past. Yeah. Maybe the club think that's enough. I think they're the two injuries that really scare me in terms of, like, look, anyone in this first 11, if they get injured, we will see a drop off, right? That's the same with any first 11 in world football, right? You have your first 11. They're the first 11 because you take them out and you have a drop off in the team. The worry is where, you know, especially up front, if Eddie gets injured, there is basically no one who has ever played up front in the history for this club. Like Martinelli has done it for one or two games, but like we're going down to like academy level to find a striker. I
guess Trossard could potentially play the ESR false nine. Maybe, I mean, it's not ideal, but I guess if your two first team strikers are out, if Jesus and Nketiah are out, we were talking about this on Sunday at the game. I think Raj was the one who said it. You know, it's very hard. Like, not many teams have three kind of first team strikers.
Yeah. Well, that's fair. Yeah, you look at Chelsea; they don't really have a striker, one striker. Yeah. Man United have got Weghorst, Martial, who they don't like. Spurs have got Kane and Richarlison, but I think they're linked with someone else.
Aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah.
His name, but
even Man City have got, I don't know who plays after Alvarez. So yeah, you're probably right. Like you just have to gamble that these two strikers stay fit.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's gonna be, that's what worries me. I think if we keep this team, these first 11, 12, 13 players fit, and every title winning team has luck with injuries. You remember that Liverpool team?
Yeah.
Salah, absolutely. Mane, Firmino, Trent, Robertson, Alisson, Van Dijk pretty much played every single game. We need that luck. And that is the only way we're going to catch City, because to beat
to catch them, mate.
Catch City, but like keep up with them is you have to be perfect, pretty much, because this City team get 90 points every season.
Let's see, mate. I don't know. I feel like I'm not saying we're going to win the league, but this season, City are not infallible, right? They've dropped points in games you wouldn't necessarily expect them to, despite the fact that Harden's there. They're obviously having to play slightly different way. Who knows, man? Like, you know, there's going to be games that we go into that we expect to win, and we may well drop points. We're probably going to drop points. You know, we dropped points to Southampton this season. You know, well, that should never happen. So let's see. You know, it's a good chat. I mean, I just want to pick up on a couple of the comments that we're getting, because we're getting loads of comments. So we were talking about the pronunciation of our new signing. So again, Renciak, thank you very much. He said it's Kiwior, I think it is. So
Kiwior.
thank you very much, Renciak. He also says we're not in a title race. It's now your duty to win the title. So I don't know if you're an Arsenal fan, but I mean, let's see. One game at a time, eh? And Fuad Farah, hope I got that right. Big up, everyone. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Yes, thank you very much. We appreciate that a lot. And Rajesh must be missing being on this podcast on this channel because he has not stopped messaging. His Wi-Fi is clearly working from the plane. Kiwior's passing range looks, and then the fire emoji. And Lewandowski said in an interview that he thinks Kiwior will go to the top. And he said, "If just landing, have to drop. Great pod, guys. Thanks. Thank you, Rajesh." Cool. Lastly, then, I guess, last thing to talk about is we have what I'm going to say is a massive game on Friday. It's in the Cup, FA Cup 4th round, Man City away, Friday night. I say it's massive because I know that, there's probably a bit of a split opinion between Arsenal fans on what they want, how they want us to kind of approach this game in terms of team selection. I'm sure a lot of people want us to go full throttle and play a very strong team because we want to beat City and we want to win the FA Cup. And a lot of people are like, well, this is a once in a lifetime position that we're in the league. Don't risk Saka, don't risk Martinelli, don't risk Partey, the players that you were just talking about that we probably can't afford to lose. But I feel like it's a massive game because it's Man City, and it's obviously the first time we're going to be playing them this season. And it does kind of feel like, even though we've got them in the league in a couple of weeks, just over 2 weeks, it does feel like it's a game where, just a matchup between, these, the best two teams in the country at the moment, basically. And it's really going to be really interesting to see, despite the fact that the teams are probably going to be slightly changed in terms of who plays. It's going to be really interesting just to see kind of how both teams come out, really, and how they fare against each other. I mean, I think first question is, Aaron, like, in terms of who you want to play and the kind of team you want us to put out, do you want a Premier League team? Do you want us to put out the Europa League team? Do you expect it to be like a mix?
I think it will be a bit of a mix. I think we'll see players like Trossard. I think we'll probably see Tierney, Vieira, maybe Smith Rowe, because we need to give these players minutes. And because we've got a Europa League campaign starting soon. And actually, what the biggest mistake we've made in previous seasons is when we do have those injuries, the players that come in just haven't played. And they were throwing them into league games and they're still finding their feet. And, we do have a bit of we do have some good players. Kiwior might get some minutes. And I think, look, the risk here is that we benefit from giving some of these, I would say beat the B team or some of the substitutes minutes. And I think they're still good players. And, Vieira, Smith Rowe, really exciting attacking players. Trossard, another really attacking player. I think that where the issue is, like, some of those gaps where we don't have those squad players, I think ultimately what we'll probably see is some of the first team start, right? So I don't know, maybe we get away with playing El Neni, but I still think Thomas Partey probably starts on Friday. Eddie Nketiah almost certainly starts for me on Friday. Maybe because Trossard's there, we rest one of Saka or Martinelli. And we could probably play like Nketiah, Smith Rowe, and Trossard on the right, for example, and Vieira behind them.
Yeah.
Which is really exciting, right?
It's not bad. Yeah.
Players that we want to see, players we want to give minutes to. And, the benefit of that is we give minutes to exciting players and we get them, sharp and match up. The downside is that we risk maybe going out of the cup. But actually, for me, that's a risk I'm okay with. Because I'd rather do that but at the same time, if we played a near full first team, I can see benefits in that as well, because we're going to be playing City. This is a warm up before the big one, right? And we play them during, I think, on the 15th of February.
Yeah.
There will be, it's going to be really interesting how the managers approach it, like what they give away tactically. Maybe they play two different systems to not allow each other to learn too much about it. Obviously, it's Arteta going back to the Etihad and coming back as like the bigger team, the more informed team, the more successful team so far this season, and that's got interesting dynamics.
I think what might play into Arteta's thinking, just in terms of our team selection, is that we basically got a week between that game and the Everton game.
Yep.
We don't have a midweek game, and I mean, look, an injury is an injury, and if we're unlucky with an injury, that happens. It could happen in any game, right? But he's generally gone, like, even if you look at some of his Europa League picks, his team selections in the group stage, he's generally, he's obviously rested a number of players, but he hasn't gone full kind of B team, from what I remember. And I think he'll look at this. I think he wants to win the FA Cup. I think he wants to win the Europa League, and I think he's probably so confident now. Like, there's so much confidence going through the club. I think he'll go pretty strong. I mean, I pretty much agree with what you said. I wouldn't be surprised though if he owned, like, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I expect Tierney to play, for example, but I can see, Trossard starting. That makes complete sense. But I don't think, for example, he plays Lokonga. I don't think he. No, I don't even think he plays El Neni, like you say. I don't know if he, like, Smith Rowe makes a lot of sense, but he might even keep Erdegaard in the team, maybe, even though he probably needs a rest. So I think it's going to be a pretty strong team. Getting some interesting comments. We've obviously got a Man City fan on. So Fouad again. I'm not confident on Friday. I don't trust Akanji and Ake at the back unless Diaz and Laporte start in the starting 11. So that's interesting from a City perspective, because we're probably going into this thinking, probably based on how bad we've been at City the last few years away. Probably just we don't want to get thrashed. But it's obviously a very, very different Arsenal going to the game. And as he also points out, Fouad, it's the homecoming of Zinchenko and Jesus and Arteta. So
Well, I guess Arteta
he's been back before, right? But yeah. All right, cool, mate. Should we do predictions? Oh, Jonathan's just commented, my cousin. Hoping they play a B team. Premier League's got to be priority, and I'm going to the game. I'm not going to read out that last bit because it's a bit dodgy, but yeah. So Jonathan is going to the game. Prem's got to be the priority, so he wants a B team. So, but what do you reckon, Aaron, and what are you going for in terms of a score line prediction?
I think we will lose.
Okay.
I think we'll play a bit of a mixed team. I think it'll be close. I don't think we'll get battered or anything, but I think we will just about lose.
Okay.
Because I think City have a slightly stronger A/B team. And therefore, I think we'll probably lose 1-0.
Okay. I'm going to go... I think it'll be a pretty even game, to be honest. I think, like I said, we'll go pretty strong. I see it will go pretty strong, and it's just going to be a bit of I think it's going to feel like a Premier League game in many ways. There's no replays in the fourth round, is there? So
is it the fourth round? Yes, fourth round. I think there is. I think there is a replay.
There's still replays in the fourth round?
Yeah, there is a replay.
I was going to say my prediction was going to be we win it in extra time or after.
We don't want a replay. That is the one. I don't think either wants a replay, right? Well, we don't want to be playing City 4 times this season.
I can see that happening. I'm gonna go for a draw. I guess we don't know the rules of the competition if there's definitely a replay or not, but on the assumption,
I think there is, because the Man United Leeds game that's been scheduled for the week after in the Premier League is subject to neither of those teams needing a replay.
Okay.
And that's the midweek, in a couple of weeks.
Wasn't it because of Man United might be in the League Cup final?
No, that's
a
different one. Yeah. So I'm 99% sure there is a replay now that you mention it.
Well, I'm going to sit on the fence and I'm going to go for a draw. I'm going to go for a 1-1.
Yeah, I think that's probably. I think that's even more likely.
That'll be a good game to go to, though. I mean, it's not. As in City at home, FA Cup replay.
It'd be the case of playing City every other week between now and February.
Pretty much. All right, mate. Nice one. Look, I think that wraps it up. So very good chat. Look, fantastic time to be an Arsenal fan, right? We're all loving it at the moment. Can't wait for the next game. Can't wait for City on Friday. Thanks everyone that's tuned in. We've actually had a number of people that have watched this live. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, please drop a like, drop a thumbs up, and
tell your friends, tell your family,
all of that good stuff. And thanks for all the comments and interaction. We've said this before, we really appreciate it. It makes a big difference because it just makes the chat a lot more interesting and interactive. So we love it. So thank you very much. But we'll leave it there. Arunan, cheers.
Cheers. Thank you all. Thanks for listening.
All right.
See you soon.
Take care, guys. See you later.
Bye.